The Titanic is often the most recognized name in ocean liner tragedies, but the sinking of the RMS Lusitania sent shockwaves through the modern world. A British mail steamer known for speed and luxury, the Lusitania was caught in the conflict of World War I. In May 1915, a U-boat's torpedo, followed by a second explosion, sank the ship in just 18 minutes, resulting in the deaths of families, celebrities, and over 100 Americans. Rescue boats rushed from the Irish coast, and newspapers filled their headlines with outrage. The incident ignited debates about contraband and submarine warfare, significantly swaying U.S. public opinion towards war. This is the story of why the sinking of the Lusitania was even more impactful than that of the Titanic. Speed, prestige, and a ship built for an age of rivalry. Launched in 1906, the RMS Lusitania was Britain's bold answer to German dominance on the Atlantic. Built by John Brown & Co. at Clydebank and named after an ancient Roman province, she embodied both power and prestige. At 787 feet long and over 44,000 tons, she was among the largest ships afloat, capable of 24 knots thanks to advanced turbine engines and 4 massive propellers. In 1907, she captured the blue ribbon for the fastest westbound crossing, restoring British pride and giving Cunard a marketing triumph. Her 4 funnels and grand interiors reflected Edwardian opulence, from the domed dining saloon and Georgian lounges to refined third-class cabins that rivaled older liners' second class. Yet beneath the polish, the British Admiralty had quietly helped finance her construction, ensuring she was built to naval standards with reinforced decks and gun mount positions should war demand her conversion to an auxiliary cruiser. Though Lusitania never sailed as a warship, her dual purpose would shadow her story. Her turbines gave her dazzling speed, but also caused years of stern vibration, and like most liners of her age, she carried lifeboats for only a portion of those aboard, a gamble based on faith that help would always be near in the busy North Atlantic. Compared with White Star's later Olympic-class liners, she was slimmer and less stable, with long coal bunkers along her sides that could worsen any list from flooding. Still, she was a star of her time, surviving a massive rogue wave in 1910 and earning headlines as New York's Hudson-Fulton celebration the year before. By 1914, however, the grandeur of the Atlantic trade was fading into the shadow of war. The North Sea was mined, Germany warned that Allied ships would be fair targets, and Britain tightened its blockade. Many liners were taken into service, but Lusitania remained in civilian use, continuing to carry passengers across increasingly dangerous waters. The stage was set for one of the most infamous maritime tragedies in history. Warnings, neutrality, and an ocean turned into a war zone.
The British are definitely trying to get America involved in this war. Right from the beginning, there is a sense of, we need you here. Your shipping is not going to be enough. We are your brethren. You must support us.
When World War I started, President Woodrow Wilson declared American neutrality, and most citizens agreed. But U.S. trade favored Britain, and Germany's new naval policies soon threatened civilian safety. In February 1915, Berlin announced the waters around Britain as a war zone, warning that Allied ships could be sunk. The German embassy even placed notices in U.S. newspapers cautioning Americans traveling on ships like the Lusitania to do so at their own risk. British authorities also issued warnings, urging Captain William Thomas Turner to avoid the south coast of Ireland, zigzag to confuse submarines, and exercise caution. He followed these wartime instructions, reflecting the tension between civilian travel and the realities of total war. Neutrality was further complicated by cargo, as the Lusitania often carried materials like ammunition, which was legal under U.S. law but controversial. Germany cited this to justify attacks, but Washington insisted a passenger liner's cargo did not excuse mass casualties. For passengers, the journey felt routine. On May 1, 1915, they boarded at Pier 54 under clear skies. Wealthy travelers like Alfred Gwynn Vanderbilt mingled with families and immigrants, unaware of the looming danger. One boiler room was temporarily shut down to save coal, slightly reducing the ship's speed, but everything seemed normal as the ship headed towards Liverpool. But the threat was closing in. U-boat commander Walter Schweiger had already sunk several vessels near the Irish coast that week. The waters around the old head of Kinsale had turned into a deadly zone where British patrols searched for threats. The elements of blockade and retaliation converged, setting the stage for disaster when the Lusitania met U-20. 18 minutes.
And what happened when you were tipped into the water?
Well, I was dragged down by the
tow of the sinking ship. And then when I came up, I hit my shoulder on something which turned out to be a sort of life raft, not a proper lifeboat, but a life raft. And the canvas was still over the top, and there were 2 men on it who had to cut the canvas free. And then they pull out the sides and get out the oars and started rowing. Then it was gradually picked up people. Then later on, we were picked up by I suppose it was a fishing smack.
Nobody necessarily wanted to close the Lusitania that quickly with a U-boat with torpedoes around. Do you want to sink as well? Of course you don't.
At 2:10 in the afternoon, May 7th, 1915, U-20 fired a single torpedo that struck Lusitania on the starboard bow, just behind the bridge, about 11 miles off the old head of Kinsale. Passengers heard and felt a deep detonation. Almost immediately, a second, larger internal explosion followed. Contemporary explanations ranged from a possible boiler event to ignition within the hull spaces shaken by the first blast. The result was rapid, asymmetric flooding and a list that grew severe within minutes. The timescale is what makes this catastrophe so different to audiences familiar with the Titanic. Titanic took nearly 3 hours to founder, which allowed a partial, if tragically inadequate, evacuation. Lusitania had less than 20 minutes from strike to sink. In practice, she was effectively lost in 18. The list to starboard made using lifeboats in the high port side nearly impossible. Lines jammed, boats smashed against davits, and the tilt made launching hazardous. Accounts record that only 6 boats and rafts were successfully lowered, several more overturned. Crew hurried to their positions, but drill was no match for gravity and time. Inside the ship, water poured through open bunker doors to coal spaces and through structural paths that bulkheads could not arrest at that angle. The longitudinal coal bunker bulkheads that had once been considered a protection became a liability. Metacentric height fell as uneven flooding increased. Public rooms tilted, stairways became traps, and the promenades pitched towards the sea. Those with life jackets reached rails and waited for help that could not arrive in minutes. Others tried to cross the canted decks to boats on the lower, more exposed starboard side, where descent was quicker, but the water was closer and more violent. The Irish coast was close enough for signals to be heard. Local boats, trawlers, and lifeboats from towns like Kinsale and Queenstown turned out as soon as distress calls spread, and the Royal Navy considered sorties. HMS Juno left briefly, but turned back in accordance with policy. Irish rescuers, nevertheless, brought hundreds out of the water. Survivors later described oil slicks, debris, cold, and the sight of funnels and masts going under. Bodies washed ashore for days. Out of about 1,960 people aboard, 1,197 died. The survivor count was 767, a number that included some who would die from injuries after rescue. Outrage, explanations, and a hardening of public opinion.
Oh, it was a terrific explosion. A terrific one. And it sounded as if it was right near too. It frightened the life out of me.
We got to the poop deck next to the funnels. And so we went down with a sink, and when she got to where we were, on the top, we just went into the ocean.
Sailors carried the bodies of the dead children ashore in their arms as carefully as if those children had still been living, and laid them by the sides of the adults on the quayside.
In the hours following, both sides rushed to control the narrative. German officials claimed the ship carried contraband and could be treated as an auxiliary cruiser, asserting passengers had been warned. They pointed to the declared war zone, while some German media celebrated the attack. In contrast, Allied editors labeled it as murder at sea, with American papers questioning whether any cargo could justify the loss of civilian lives. Washington demanded an apology, compensation, and assurances from Berlin. Secretary of State William Jennings Bryan resigned due to policy disagreements, while President Wilson took a firmer stance through Robert Lansing. Germany temporarily toned down its aggression, but soon resumed unrestricted submarine warfare, further increasing tensions with the U.S. Though the U.S. didn't enter the war right away, the Lusitania disaster became a powerful symbol. When Germany resumed its unrestricted attacks in 1917 and the Zimmermann telegram was revealed, memories of the torpedoed liner re-emerged as evidence of German brutality, ultimately pushing America into the Great War. Now it's time to hear from you. What detail about the Lusitania's 18-minute loss most changes how you see it compared to the Titanic? Let us know in the comments section below.